Early American Indian police played a significant role in the settlement of the West. Even before recorded history, Native Americans practiced various forms of policing. Among them, the Sioux had the most organized police system known as the Akachita, which included warrior societies and policing groups. Their responsibilities involved general social control, particularly during annual buffalo hunts, where they ensured tribal members didn't start too early, kept noise to a minimum, and managed stragglers. After the hunt, they oversaw the fair distribution of meat and likely intervened in disputes about who could claim a particular kill. The Cherokees established the first tribal police force recognizable to European settlers. By 1779, they formed regulating companies primarily to address horse thefts, some of which were committed by white individuals. In 1708, the Cherokees appointed sheriffs and created small groups called the Lighthorse, who patrolled villages and enforced the first written laws established by an Indian tribe. Nearly a century later, in 1865 at Fort Laramie, some Sioux who wanted to avoid the escalating conflict with white settlers on the northern plains set up camp east of the fort. In exchange for rations, they agreed to serve as scouts and camp police. Trader Charles Elliston led this paramilitary unit. Thomas Moonlight of the 11th Kansas Cavalry hung Two-Face and Blackfoot, two Oglalas, who were apprehended by members of Elliston's police in May. A federally financed Indian police force was founded by Thomas Lightfoot, the U.S. Indian agent for the Iowa and the Sac and Fox tribes in Nebraska, around 1869. Lightfoot's actions reflected a significant shift in U.S. policy toward Native Americans. Rather than recognizing tribal peoples as sovereign nations, the government began treating Native individuals as separate entities. Commissioner of Indian Affairs Ely S. Parker, who served as Chief of Staff to Ulysses S. Grant during the Civil War, pushed for the abolition of treaty negotiations with Native American tribes in 1869. While policies fluctuated, Lightfoot and others adapted as needed. For instance, in 1872, Agent William Arney commissioned Navajo police to patrol the reservation borders and combat cattle and horse theft. Meanwhile, Special Indian Commissioner for the Navajos, General Oliver O. Howard, organized a cavalry of 130 Navajos to safeguard the reservation boundaries, apprehend thieves, and recover stolen livestock. Within 3 months, this force successfully retrieved 60 head of livestock and continued to operate despite orders from Washington to disband. Although they were effective and served as a model for others, the Navajo units were ultimately disbanded by the Department of the Interior, partly due to a lack of official funding or approval. However, a similar initiative took root among the Apaches in Arizona, which proved to be long-lasting. On February 26, 1874, John P. Clum was appointed Indian agent for the White Mountain Apaches at the San Carlos Reservation, where he was responsible for the welfare of 4,500 Apaches. He had just been let go from the U.S. Army Signal Corps, which was based in neighboring New Mexico, when he arrived in San Carlos on August 8th. According to his son Woodworth Clum's account in Apache Agent, The Story of John P. Clum, this marked the beginning of a new era in southwestern Indian relations. The 22-year-old New Yorker quickly showcased his innovative spirit, although his cocky attitude alienated many key Army officers who were resentful of Indian Bureau involvement in Arizona. Clum entered the scene during a time of fluctuating policies regarding the Indian question, specifically under U.S. Grant's administration, which initiated the peace policy. Various religious denominations took on responsibilities for different Indian reservations, and the Dutch Reformed Church was assigned to oversee San Carlos, creating the need for a new agent. Despite having no prior experience with Indian affairs, Clum accepted a commission from the church based on recommendations from former classmates at Rutgers College, which also supported his alma mater. His familiarity with the Southwest was limited to a 3-year period spent taking meteorological observations in Santa Fe. Clum traveled to Tucson and then made his way to the agency. According to his son, local leaders advised him against going to San Carlos, warning him, "You'd better head back to the farm and save both your money and your scalp." Clum responded, "The government is covering my travel expenses, so I can't lose money by going to San Carlos, and since I have no hair, I can't very well lose my scalp." Upon his arrival, Clum was disappointed by what he found. Of all the desolate, isolated human habitations, wickiups covered with brush, grass, old blankets, or deerskins, smoky and smelly, lean dogs, mangy and lethargic, a few Apaches wandering about, as wild and vicious as the residents of an old folks' home. The roof of the agency office was covered in dried grass and was constructed of adobe, chinked between short poles. Fortunately, Clum wasn't easily intimidated. Otherwise, he might have resigned after learning about the places where an agency employee had been stabbed to death. The site near the Indian Traders store where First Lieutenant Jacob Almy of the 5th U.S. Cavalry was killed on May 27, 1873, and another location where 2 Teamsters were murdered, all by reservation Apaches. The following morning, 5 Apaches entered Clum's office carrying a gunny sack that contained the head of an Indian renegade responsible for a recent uprising. General George Crook, a strong advocate for using Indian scouts as part of his force against Geronimo, had instructed them to return to the agency only if they brought in the renegade. Unable to capture him alive and unable to carry the body, they decided to bring back just the head. Impressed with Clum's achievements, the U.S. Congress allocated $30,000 in 1878 to hire 430 privates and 50 officers across various agencies in the West. By 1880, appropriations allowed for 480 Indian police, and in 1881, 49 out of 68 agencies had their own Indian police. In its 1883 session, Congress further authorized 1,000 privates and 100 officers. The rest is history. Tribal police continue to play an essential role in life on reservations today.